Hans Wilsdorf was some years old when his mother died, and at the age of 12, his father died, leaving him alone in the streets. 12 years later, he founded Rolex, the company which even after 117 years of its foundation is thriving and is known to create the most luxurious watches of all time. Rolex annual revenue is around $13 billion, and it has 30,000 employees. The company just creates around 800,000 watches every year, and all of them are handmade. Hans Wilsdorf's philosophy was simple, that was, only great marketing is needed to make a company successful. Want to know how he created the Rolex? Watch the full video. We at Business Chronicles tell the stories of extraordinarily successful people. Please subscribe to our channel to help us in making more videos. Hans Eberhard Wilhelm Wilsdorf was born in Kulmbach, Germany on March 22, 1881, as the second son of Anna and Johann Daniel Ferdinand Wilsdorf. He became an orphan at the age of 12 and was then raised by his uncles, who sold the highly viable family iron tools business that belonged to his father. Hans was sent to an excellent boarding school in Coburg, Germany, about 25 miles away from his home. There, he received high-quality education. Wilsdorf focused on his schoolwork to survive this new life and soon became proficient at speaking, reading, and writing English, an ability that would eventually become useful. Wilsdorf also excelled in mathematics, which inspired him to travel and work in foreign countries. He soon began his career as an apprentice with an influential company dealing in pearl exportation. The experience Hans gained here would play a crucial role in his future dealings. In 1900, he moved to La Chaux-de-Fonds to work as an English correspondent and clerk with the watch firm of Meyers, Kuehne Korten, where he was paid a salary of 80 Swiss francs. Here, Wilsdorf began his career in making Swiss watches, as he was responsible for winding hundreds of pocket watches daily. He was also responsible for verifying that all watches were accurate. Kuehne Korten was where he gained massive knowledge about how all types of watches were produced. In 1903, Wilsdorf moved to London, where he worked with another watchmaking company. After saving a decent amount of money, he set up a business with his brother-in-law Alfred Davis named Wilsdorf & Davis. The purpose of the company was to provide high-quality timepieces at pocket-friendly prices. Their company specialized in exporting both pocket watches and wristwatches throughout the British Empire. During these times, wristwatches were considered a joke, and the few who wore them were often laughed at. The argument then was that there was no way such a tiny, delicate mechanism would withstand the violent movement of the hand and arm. It was also too small to be accurate. Hans, however, ignored the criticism and pushed on with his dream of wristwatches, eventually displacing pocket watches as the go-to personal time teller. He placed the largest order for wristwatches ever booked at that time. Being the dominant partner at Wilsdorf & Davis, Wilsdorf staked his company's future on the wristwatch and came up with the brand name Rolex. In 1908, Rolex was registered as a trademark to make both manly and fashionable wristwatches. The name means absolutely nothing and is believed to have been inspired by George Eastman, who in 1884 decided against naming his camera Eastman and instead named it Kodak. Mr. Eastman believed that a trade name must be short, incapable of being misspelled to the extent that it destroys its identity, and in order to satisfy the trademark laws, must mean nothing. Hence, the brand name Rolex was birthed. In 1910, Wilsdorf sent a Rolex watch to the official rating center in Bienne, and it returned as the world's first wristwatch to be awarded the Swiss Certificate of Chronometric Precision. Another undisputable proof of the company's publicity soon came about on July 15, 1914, when the British Kew Observatory awarded a 25mm Rolex wristwatch with a Class A precision, a merit that was only given to marine chronometers. In 1915, Wilsdorf & David was renamed Rolex Watch Company Limited, partly because the name Wilsdorf was provoking anti-Germans in Great Britain during the First World War. The company's headquarters in London had over 60 employees and was the export center of every market to which the company exported. That same year, the British government imposed a 33.3% customs duty on watches, hence necessitating the need to move the company's export operations. By 1919, Rolex opened a Geneva office and soon moved headquarters to Switzerland. There, they adopted the French corporate name of Montre Rolex SA. In 1925, Rolex registered the 5-spiked crown as its trademark, while the company introduced the waterproof and airtight Oyster model the following year. The Oyster Perpetual, renowned as the first self-winding wristwatch, was introduced 5 years later. In 1956, Rolex launched the Milgauss, a watch renowned for its resistance to magnetization, a phenomenon known to reduce the accuracy of watches. The company also introduced a line of less expensive watches called Tudor in 1952. By 1962, Rolex had been awarded 500,000 official timing certificates for wrist chronometers, more than half of the total Swiss chronometer production for the past 50 years. In 1963, Rolex introduced the Rolex Daytona chronograph model. Also, the Rolex board appointed André Jean Henninger as Hans Wilsdorf's successor in the same year. By 1968, Rolex had been awarded 1 million official timing certificates for wrist chronometers, a feat no one else had achieved at that time. By 1970, it introduced the trip-lock winding crown system, which screws down the winding crown against the Oyster case to create a seal like a submarine. In 1992, Patrick Heininger, son of Andre Heininger, took over as CEO of Rolex and resigned in 2008 due to health challenges, to be replaced by Bruno Meyer. The latter will also be replaced only after 2 years by Riccardo Marini. Rolex has consistently strived to promote itself by associating itself with adventurers, sportspeople, and athletes of both sexes. For example, in 1927, Wilsdorf gave Mercedes Gleitz, the first British woman to successfully cross the English Channel, a Rolex to wear on her wrist while swimming across. 2 years before the introduction of the Rolex Oyster, a British man named Malcolm Campbell developed a unique likeness for shattering on-land speed records for cars. Malcolm broke the world land speed record 9 times between 1924 and 1935. When Wilsdorf learned that Malcolm had been putting on a Rolex wristwatch when he broke the speed record, he asked for Malcolm's permission to publicize that fact. Malcolm agreed but refused to accept any payment for this endorsement, making Malcolm Campbell the first male Rolex ambassador. Rolex achieved a great level of publicity when Edmund Hillary and his team made the first successful climb of Mount Everest while wearing Rolex wristwatches. In January 1960, when Jacques Piccard's Bathyscaphe Trieste made its descent into the planet's deepest waters in the Mariana Trench, a specially designed Rolex was attached to the vessel's hull and was found to be in perfect condition when the vessel resurfaced. In 2013, Rolex invited the first group of bloggers to tour the 4 Rolex manufacturing industries in Switzerland. In 2015, Rolex appointed a new CEO, Jean-Frédéric Duor, and introduced the superlative chronometer standard, which guarantees that all new Rolex watches will perform to a standard of plus or minus 2 seconds per day and increase their warranties to 5-year standard. In 1945, Hans Wilsdorf established the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation and handed his 100% ownership stake in Rolex to the foundation. Till today, the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation maintains control and ownership of Rolex, and it discreetly donates a huge portion of its income to various charitable causes. For example, in 2015, it saved Servette FC, a Geneva football club, from bankruptcy. It was also responsible for financing, designing, managing, and executing a spectacular bridge on Geneva's Arve River and named it the Hans Wilsdorf Bridge. In 2017, the foundation offered $100 million out of the $114 million needed for The Head, Geneva's applied art school, to acquire a large new in-town campus. One of the more recent actions of the foundation was to buy out a famous downtown Geneva building which was initially scheduled to be torn down. It harbored a cinema that had been deemed unsalvageable. Apart from these huge feats of philanthropy that attracted media attention, the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation is also believed to mostly work off the radar on a continuous chain of philanthropic projects. It wholly or partly finances several associations including food banks, scholarships, elderly charities, and school prizes, with special emphasis on reducing excessive individual debts. While Hans Wilsdorf passed away in 1960, his legacy lives on in the Rolex watches recognized and sought for around the world, and through the philanthropic work of the foundation that always reminds us of him. Hans Wilsdorf was an orphan. When he was 12, he had no one to take care of him. He faced challenges and slowly his luck changed. He had nothing but the determination that made him create the world's most respectable brand Rolex, which is thriving even today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to watch more videos like this.